What is up, YouTube? Running Guy Sports Podcast back here with another video. I'm your co-host Elliot, and with me is your other co-host Ellis. Today we're going to be going over the Patriots off-season review. We're going to be talking about what they need to, who they need to draft, their free agency signings, and what they need to do to prepare to the upcoming season. So before we get into it, make sure to hit that bell, turn on notifications, subscribe, drop a like if you enjoyed this video. And yeah, let's waste no time and get right into this. So in 2020, the Patriots went 7-9. They started Cam Newton, just picked him up in the free agency before the season. Uh, Cam Newton didn't really fit. I think they're going to stick with him another year though. See if something works because they've signed a lot of new free agents. But yeah, 7-9. At the beginning of the season, Cam Newton looked pretty good, and then something happened. He got COVID, and then he was back, and then it was not the same. He was just terrible. He threw like six. I think it was like 8 touchdown passes the whole season. He started a lot of games, so he was probably one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL last year. And the Patriots, their defense was pretty strong. That's the only reason that they were able to win games. But they did not have a lot of good wide receivers. Tight ends, not very good. Their running game was their best part of their offense. Sonny Michel and the offensive line created a lot of running holes and gaps. But not a very good season for the Patriots. They've got an okay draft pick, but they've signed a lot of free agents, and that's what we're going to get into next.
So yeah, the Patriots, as you just said, 7-9. But we all were looking around at the Patriots, and they had the most opt-outs by any team with 8 opt-outs, a lot on the defensive side of the ball. Dante Hightower, really the leader of that defense on that team, had opted out of the 2020 NFL season, along with 7 other guys, all on mostly on the defensive side of the ball. And Cam Newton last year was had a 47 QBR. That's 30th in the NFL, which is horrible. There's 32 teams in the NFL, so that's almost dead last in the NFL for a starting quarterback. And going from Tom Brady, possibly, in my opinion, the greatest quarterback of all time, to Cam Newton, who's almost dead last in QBR ranking, is a huge drop off. And for Bill Belichick, the head coach, it's just not. I can't imagine he's very pleased with Cam Newton. And it really shocks me personally that they re-signed Cam Newton to a 1-year, $14 million deal when in 2020 he had a 1.7 or $1.75 million deal for 1 year. So they gave him a $13 million raise, and he really didn't do much last year at all. I mean, they didn't make the playoffs, and he ranked almost dead last in QBR, and that's really some of the more underrated stats right there is QBR in the NFL. He had 2,600 passing yards, 8 passing touchdowns, and 12 rushing touchdowns. 8 passing touchdowns in the NFL is not going to get done. And like you said, they didn't have very good receivers and tight ends. And this year is their year. They have a lot of they've signed a lot of receivers and tight ends, and I think that I've said this many times. I think that in the NFL, if you have a good quarterback who can distribute the ball well, your receivers aren't going to matter. But I just don't think Cam Newton's the type of guy to distribute the ball very well. Obviously, his running game this year was way better than his passing game in the whole season, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. These one thing that's remained with the Patriots for the past couple of years, really starting in 2016 and 17. Of course, man, the amazing defense is their defense. I mean, you got a great secondary: J.C. Jackson, Stephon Gilmore, the McCourty brothers. That's just one of the better secondaries in the NFL. And if Hightower plays, got a good linebacking core. They've signed some defensive pickups as well. I mean, if this defense plays well or better than they did last year, I mean, Stephon Gilmore was kind of a upset last year because he didn't play up to expectations. Of course, being defensive player of the year in 2019, but I think this defense can be one of the best in the NFL this year. And if their offense is able to pick up points, they've signed some tight ends and wide receivers in free agency. This is going to be a good team. I don't think they'll be able to win their division yet, beat the Bills or even the Dolphins because the Dolphins have a lot of draft picks this year. But I mean, you could potentially see 3 teams from the AFC East make the playoffs. It's one of the better divisions. You wouldn't think like last year and the year before, this division wasn't amazing, but this year it's one of the better divisions.
The AFC East really has become used to be one of the more less competitive divisions, and with the Patriots just dominating year in and year out, getting six of their easy wins from all their division games. With the Bills, they were terrible. The Jets were terrible. The Dolphins were terrible, and to now where it's one of the more competitive divisions. You have the Dolphins, who were 10-6 last year, just a game short of making the playoffs, and with so many draft picks, they have so much to rebuild on, and they already have a very, very strong foundation for that team. Then you have the Buffalo Bills, who are, I guess, are the best team in that division right now, but I don't think it's by a very large margin. I think something's off in Buffalo. I don't know quite what it is yet. We'll see what it is eventually. But I think that, and then you have the New England Patriots, which 7-9 isn't. It's a losing record, but it's not the worst thing in the world. Like a 2-14 team like the Jets. I mean, they have a way longer way to becoming a shot at the playoffs. When I think the Patriots already have a shot at the playoffs with so many signings, Bill Belichick knows the game of football just as well as anybody in the NFL does, and I think that he knows that he needs to get out there and get some solid players, and they've used their money very well. I mean, like I said earlier, we were waiting for the Patriots to see how much money. I mean, they were second in the salary cap with Bill Belichick coaching and Robert Kraft, like the best GM coach combo right there. Just so good. Hunter Henry, Matthew Judon, Kyle Van Noy, re-signed James White, Nelson Aguilar, John Smith, Jalen Mills, Kendrick Bourne. And if you see all those guys being signed, you kind of expect it to be on a 1-year deal. But a lot of those deals, Hunter Henry for 3 years, Matthew Judon 4 years, Kyle Van Noy 2 years, and Kyle Van Noy has been on the team previously, so he knows a lot about the coaching staff and a lot. He can be a good leader of that linebacking core. The linebacking core is going to be so good next year with Dante Hightower coming back, Kyle Van Noy, and Matthew Judon. And I think that in the draft, they might pick up a linebacker as soon as the first round, possibly. We'll see with the 15th overall pick. We'll talk about their draft in a little bit. But a bunch of wide receivers, Kendrick Bourne, Nelson Aguilar, John Smith, and Hunter Henry, all those guys, 3 years, 4 years deals, all those guys. And they know how to spend their money, and they're spending it very well, in my opinion. They didn't go out and just sign one very good player. They went out and signed a lot of good players for good prices, in my opinion, and they got a lot. They got a lot of bang for their buck, in my opinion, and I think that it's going to be really helpful. But I just don't think Cam Newton is the guy to get it done. And if Cam Newton had any excuses last year, he has none this year, because that is just really talented receiving core and talented backfield. Damian Harris, James White, Sony Michel. He has no excuses to do bad this year, honestly, and to have only 8 rushing touchdowns and rank 30th in QBR.
Yeah, that's absolutely terrible. Patriots have now a lot of little pieces that they can build up, but you need somebody to construct them. And yeah, I don't think Cam Newton's the guy either. And as you said, he has no excuse. If he does bad here, I don't know. I do. They've made a lot of good decisions, but I do not think re-signing Cam Newton was a good one. I personally thought he was going to go maybe the Washington football team, or maybe even the Colts earlier in the offseason. But I thought the Patriots would either draft a quarterback later in the first round, or they sign a new one, because Cam Newton, I don't know what they're thinking. He did not do well for them. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays this year, because, like you said, he's no excuses. So
Yeah, I agree. And from going to $1.75 million, which, for an average person's a lot of money, but for an NFL starting quarterback is nothing. He had 11. There was 11 backup quarterbacks last year making more money than Cam Newton, which is honestly ridiculous. And it honestly made sense with his stats at the end of the year. He played like a backup quarterback. 1 year, $14 million this year, and I don't see what makes him decide to go from paying that guy who led you to a 7-9 season after making the playoffs last year with Tom Brady. And Tom Brady and Cam Newton obviously are on totally different playing levels or different types of quarterbacks in general. But they're still, it just makes no sense to me why they do that. And you'd think that they draft a quarterback in the first round, but them signing Cam Newton for that much money for a whole year makes me think that they're not going to for some reason. I really thought that Mac Jones would be a good fit for him. You saw at Alabama, he just had a ton of receivers to just distribute the ball to. And with the Patriots bringing in so much talented receivers, I think that they possibly could draft Mac Jones at number 15th overall in the draft. Will it happen? I don't know. It's just really with that move is so questionable of signing Cam Newton to a 1 year, $14 million deal. It really points towards that they're not going to draft a quarterback that early. And a lot of people were thinking they'd trade up for a guy like Justin Fields or maybe even Trey Lance, which I think would be a pretty good move as well. And I just don't see that happening with that $14 million 1 year deal. Just makes me really think that they're not going to, and just all signs point to no for 15th overall quarterback. I think Kyle Trask in the later rounds would be a really good option for the Patriots to pick up as well, because he like Mac Jones, I said, he had a ton of good receivers to distribute the ball to, Kadarius Toney and Kyle Pitts obviously. But I just think that they're going to pick up Micah Parsons at the 15th overall pick. They don't trade up. It's either going to be Micah Parsons or Mac Jones, but I just can't see the Patriots drafting a quarterback after paying Cam Newton for a 1 year, $14 million deal. And I do think that Mac Jones or Justin Fields or Trey Lance, either of those guys would have a better season than Cam Newton. Cam Newton, at when he was with the Carolina Panthers, even in his MVP season, he's so self-centered that it's just he's not the team player that you need for that Bill Belichick has had with Tom Brady. Tom Brady takes pay cuts so he can keep the Buccaneers around. The Buccaneers are signing 22 returning starters. That's all 11 players on the field, and that's incredible. Tom Brady's taking a pay cut because of that. He has won 7 Super Bowls. He should be getting paid more than Mahomes should be if he's the best player in football right now. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah. So the Patriots, their draft picks, I think they have they have a lot of draft picks. To put this in perspective, the Seahawks, who is our team, they have 3 draft picks in this upcoming draft. The Patriots have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 draft picks. They have 4 fourth-round picks, a first-round pick, a second-round pick, a third-round pick, a fifth-round pick, and 2 sixth-round picks, and a seventh-round pick. They're going to pick up a lot of guys. Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens to this Patriots team, because the sky's the limit with that much cap space and that many draft picks, and already how many people you've already picked up in the offseason. So we'll see what happens with the Patriots in 2021. They could make the playoffs, or they could bust because of Cam Newton. We'll see. But if you enjoyed this video, drop a like, subscribe, turn on notifications, follow our socials, our Instagram and our TikTok at Run and Gun Sports. We will see you for another video coming up soon. Thank you for watching.